One group now challenging the law, the Satanic Temple.
Yeah, the non-theistic religious and human rights group argues its members should be exempt from the abortion ban. Adam Bennett explains why.
This isn't the first time this organization has fought back against abortion restrictions, including here in Texas. Their officials say they are ready to help members who want an abortion within the first 24 weeks of pregnancy fight this law.
Not the church, not the state. Women must decide their fate.
This weekend, the battle over Senate Bill 8 that played out in Houston
Is a savage assault on women's reproductive rights.
Today, the Satanic Temple, or TST, is suing Texas, Indiana, and Idaho in federal court over their abortion bans. Their argument is that their laws violate the religious rights of people in those states. They claim that the Idaho abortion bans violate the Idaho Exercise of Religious Freedom Act. Now, you might be asking, how could abortion violate a religious freedom? Well, this is how. Those laws make the exercise of satanic abortion ritual a crime. This ritual came about because TST lost their Supreme Court case in Missouri, and praise God the U.S. Supreme Court did not pick it up. In order to fight abortion laws in other states, TST created the satanic abortion ritual. So, what's the satanic abortion ritual? Well, satanic abortion ritual is where a woman affirms her own autonomy and then has an abortion to conclude the ritual. Here's how it's described. The ritual spans the entirety of the pregnancy termination and includes the abortion itself. It involves the woman looking at herself in the mirror and reciting a rhythmic affirmation, asserting her autonomy and her decision. It's described as a satanic destruction ritual in the sense that feelings of doubt and guilt are destroyed. Since abortion is part of the ritual, TST argues that subjecting a woman to a waiting period for an abortion is the same as the government interfering with a baptism or communion. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between a baptism and an abortion. One represents death to life and the other is actual life to death. The attorney representing TST stated this: "Our members hold a sincere religious belief that they can and should have an abortion." Did you catch that? Should have an abortion? Long gone are the days of
where abortion is safe and legal, but rare.
Today, it's celebrate abortion.
If you want an abortion, get one! It doesn't have to be a big deal. It's actually a great deal. It's about $300.
Celebrate the fact that you've killed your child? This doesn't make sense to me. In Leviticus 18:21, we read about the god Molech that was worshipped by the Ammonites and Canaanites. It says, "You shall not let any of your descendants pass through the fire to Molech." To understand this verse, we have to know a little bit more about Molech. Bronze statues of Molech were made with outstretched arms. To appease Molech, these arms were heated red hot, and living children were then placed on them to be burned to death. God was so against this sickness that he wrote in Leviticus 20, verses 2-5, that anyone who participated in these atrocities should be stoned to death. And he took it even further, saying that if anyone living where this was taking place didn't do anything to stop it, that God would set my face against him and his family and will cut them off from their people together with all who follow him in prostituting themselves to Molech. Pretty harsh, and rightfully so. In March 2014, a British TV program aired revealing a waste-to-energy program that classified over 15,000 aborted and miscarried babies as clinical waste. These children's remains were then burned in furnaces alongside used medical gloves and other trash to heat their medical buildings. Does that sound familiar? I find it hard to believe that even the most rabid abortion rights supporter would accept using the remains of children as a fuel source, let alone equating them with clinical trash. If they did, if that was okay, is Soylent Green next?
They're making our food out of people.
In response to this tragedy, Dr. Dan Poulter, a health minister for the department, made the following public statement: "This practice is totally unacceptable." No, it's not just unacceptable, it's unconscionable and abhorrent. The fact that those aware of this long-term practice did nothing to stop it tells us just how depraved man apart from God is. In this election cycle, nearly every state's going to have a vote whether to allow abortions or not. Montanans, you're going to vote on whether you should have a state law requiring abortion providers to give life-saving treatment to a child that's born alive after a botched abortion. What's wrong with us that we would even question that? Michigan's Proposition 3 is by far the worst bill that I've heard about. Contrary to its defenders' claims, if adopted, this bill allows for the surviving child of a botched abortion to be put to death within the next 72 hours. This is Molech worship without the burning of the child and the bronze statue. At this moment, abortion is the primary talking point for the Democratic Party. And if you think I'm exaggerating, take a listen to this.
First, Democrats are spending a lot of time talking about abortion. As of September 20th, Democrats had spent an estimated $124 million on abortion-related TV ads, twice as much money as on any other issue, and nearly 20 times as much as they spent on abortion-related ads in the entire 2018 midterm cycle.
God forgive us for making the right to kill our unborn child twice as important than the economy, the safety of our nation's citizens, or even our environment. Satan is alive and well, and he doesn't play fair. I challenge every Christian to strongly consider who you're voting for, and personally, I don't care who the individual is, what sex they are, or what party they belong to. But if they support the killing of an unborn child, they'll have my prayers, but they will not have my support. Romans 10:14-15 tells us, "How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him in whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news." Don't sit back any longer, Christian. Be a preacher. We must be engaged with this lost world. They need to hear there's another way. Love someone enough today to speak the truth in love with meekness and fear. Please take the time to watch our powerful debunk video called "There's Nothing Wrong with Abortion" debunked. It's coming up right now. Stay bold.
All right, here we go. This one's going to be a rough journey that triggers some emotional dissonance and challenges some preconceptions. But hey, that's what Debunked is all about, and these things got to happen to get to the truth of a matter. So consider yourself warned. And now, imagine you're out one day,
And you see someone dump a bunch of babies on the side of the road. Then you see a man with a hatchet. He walks over to the babies and starts...
well, you get the picture. What would you do? Give him a thumbs up, take a selfie, assemble the Avengers, or try to stop the man right there on the spot? Now, with that in mind, I ask you these questions. What is the difference between that scene and the everyday scenario inside thousands of abortion clinics? What are the essential differences between what's in the mother's womb, the unborn, and what's outside the mother's womb, the born, that justifies the mass elimination of the former but the collective protection of the latter? Well, to help you answer that, I present to you the Sled Test. What's that, you say? Well, it's this, I say. Does being a human being with human value and human rights have anything to do with our size, level of development, environment, or degree of dependency? Is a large middle-aged man more human than a smaller 14-year-old boy? Should a fully developed female be granted more human rights than an 8-year-old girl who is not as developed yet? Is someone more worthy of life if they live in a mansion in America and less worthy if they live in a shanty in Africa? Is it okay to eliminate a nursing boy, but not his 6-year-old sister simply because the nursing boy is more dependent on his mother? No, 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 and of course, no. So then the unborn isn't any less human, void of their human value and human rights simply because of SLED, right? So now what? Well, some claim it's in the science, man. Just follow the science, they say. But when we do, it's clear from the earliest stages of development, the unborn are distinct, living, and whole human beings. In fact, the scientific evidence has been so clear for so long that even way back in 1981, a U.S. Senate report stated this: physicians, biologists, and other scientists agree that conception marks the beginning of the life of a human being, a being that is alive and part of the human species. There is overwhelming agreement on this point in countless medical, biological, and scientific writings. Okay, now fast forward a few decades, high-res photos, 3D scans, and brilliantly detailed ultrasound help us see with our own eyes what's in a human being's womb. And guess what? It's a human being.
Wow.
What else would it be? A piano? A whale shark? Just common sense. So now what? Well, there are those who actually know it's a human being. It's implicit in their language, but they use emotional appeals like, he's a financial burden. I don't want it. It's an emotional drain. It's not my fault. I'm not ready. It's not fair. She'll stop my professional progress. It'll get in the way of my desires and dreams. It's cruel for an unwanted child to be in this world. The child would be a product of incest. I can do whatever I want with my child. Okay? Can you use any of those to justify the killing of the born? No. So then why the unborn? Look, enough is enough. This topic might be psychologically complex, but it's certainly not morally complex. We all understand that how you feel doesn't justify what you do or get to do. I mean, think about it. Your Honor, the reason I ran over those people is because they're an emotional drain. Officer, I know I killed those people, but if I didn't, it would have stopped my professional progress. And now, allow me to add this for good measure. When it comes to the possibility of actually hurting or killing a human being, shouldn't we err on the side of precaution? I mean, most of you wouldn't run over a box in the middle of the road if for a second you thought there might be a puppy or a kitten in it, right? But why not go to the same lengths to save and protect human babies? Just asking. Bottom line, human beings, all human beings, from the moment of conception have value simply because they are human beings, made in the image of God, period. Psalm 139:13 declares that God knitted you together in your mother's womb. So precious is life that God commands us not to murder, but instead tells us to love one another and do nothing out of selfish ambition. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. The minute we think we are more valuable than others for any reason is the minute we think others are less valuable. And that line of thinking is the root of racism, sexism, massacres, school shootings, bullying, hatred, and all kinds of other injustices that most of us rightfully stand against because we don't want human beings to be hurt or mistreated. And that should go for the unborn too. So this idea that the unborn are less human than the born and that it's okay to eliminate them has been debunked. Adios.